Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Damme and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I want to rank every 80s movie currently available on Netflix. So with Stranger Things Season 3 still in full swing, I thought it was time to dust off the old bomber jacket and the purple shades and talk about some 80s movies, because there are some great ones on Netflix right now. So I'm going to rank the top 10, starting all the way back at number 10, with one that is still really great for a number 10 pick, Mr. Mom. So this is Michael Keaton, and this is like right before Batman, and it's very like, this could have come out today. In fact, if they did a remake today, there'd be all sorts of articles as to how timely it is, but this movie is 30 years old and still works. Michael Keaton is a stay-at-home dad. He had his time as a career, now it's time for his wife too, and he just sort of gets thrust into being a stay-at-home dad, and it's a lot of kind of obvious jokes, but Keaton's really great in it, the kids are good in it, inner turmoil with the family works out pretty well in terms of the story, so there's actually a lot of meat on the bone with what seems like just sort of a fairly superficial concept. I like this one, I've seen it quite a bit, and it is a classic for a reason. However, just keep in mind, this is my number 10 pick, it's still pretty good, but Heathers is my number 9 pick, which is even better. It's darker, it's a little more in line with a typical Flick Connection pick. It stars Winona Ryder and Christian Slater. It's about some teenage girls that are up to some very bad things. And we all know the tropes, like teenage girls stab each other in the back. Well, in this one, the girls go, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and just say they go too far, but I related this one more to a movie like Mean Girls, but this came out way before Mean Girls. It's way darker than Mean Girls. It's way better than Mean Girls, and people just for some reason loved that movie, but Heathers is a far superior pick. Just last week I pointed out The Dark Crystal is currently on Amazon Prime. It's also on Netflix. Netflix just added it because Netflix is coming out with a Dark Crystal series that looks super sick. It looks so good. The puppetry from the little glimmers we're getting looks really, really impressive. I cannot wait to watch it later in August, but now is a great time to watch the original. This is a Jim Henson movie. Everything's practical, everything's in camera, it's amazing looking, it's stunning, it's nostalgic, it's got so many different things going for it. Just, it's one of those things, like I'm looking at my list, I'm wondering why it's so far back, but it's because I love everything else on this list even more. So The Dark Crystal was kind of a family pick. It's a little dark for really little kids, but it is a family-friendly movie. Another family-friendly movie is Harry and the Hendersons. I watched this one so much as a kid. I loved this movie as a kid. I feel like I've watched it in the last couple of years and still really enjoyed it. It's a really good story. John Lithgow is the father, plays a really good character. The practical effects for Harry, the Bigfoot, look amazing. The story is great. You hear me on this channel, if you're a longtime viewer, I always mention story when it's strong, and in Harry and the Hendersons, it's a really strong story. There's some darker elements to it, again, that really younger kids are gonna maybe have a hard time with, but it's still a great flick for the whole family. And to me, some of these that I'm gonna mention, like The Dark Crystal, are just drenched. They're soaked in 80s goodness. Harry and the Hendersons kind of isn't. Aside from the fact that like people's wardrobe and stuff is a little odd, this could have easily been made yesterday and been set in the 80s and everyone would love it. Like, honestly. So if you've never watched it, even if you're alone and you're not watching it with kids or family, I'm telling you, it's a great flick. And then on the far other side of the spectrum, Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze is a cult classic. It's the epitome of an 80s movie. But let me just point out that the last time I mentioned Roadhouse on this channel, reading the comments, there were a couple of folks that need to have the stick that is lodged up their anus surgically removed. This is not a serious movie. If it was intended to be a serious movie when it was written, it certainly was not made to be a serious movie. Maybe a little bit, but it is campy, it's fun. Patrick Swayze rips a man's throat out. It's wild. A monster truck crushes cars in it. Like, this is not a serious movie. If you take it serious, the movie does kind of suck. If you have fun with it, it is a lot of fun to watch, especially if you maybe have a couple of drinks in you, if you're of age and not a recovering alcoholic, have a couple of drinks while you're watching Roadhouse. It's fantastic. Before moving on to my top 5, if you like this type of content, definitely click that subscribe button and be sure to click the little bell icon. If you want notifications when I put new videos out like this, you also have to make sure the notification bell is solid and not see-through. I don't know. YouTube's, they may figure it out one day, but they don't have it figured out yet. So in the meantime, we all have to sort of sort stuff out ourselves. Now let's ramp things up a bit for my number 5 pick with Scarface. So Scarface, I already know, is going to be some of your number 1 picks. It is not mine. Part of my history with Scarface is that back in the late 90s, when MTV Cribs was huge and when Darren was in high school, every single time they're at a rapper's house, they showed their DVD copy of Scarface for some reason, or their poster of Scarface. So what do me and my buddies do? We go out and we rent Scarface on VHS, and I like it. I like Brian De Palma movies. I don't consider it to be his best. I don't consider it to be Al Pacino's best. It is a good movie, but there are way better gangster movies out there. That said, I am not downing this movie. It is great. It is really, really good. I like almost everything about it. It's just, for some reason, I thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever made, and it totally isn't. But another one, drenched, just soaking in 80s marinade. I can say marinade. Let's just go with marinade. All right, another one that's going to be some of your favorites, Gremlins. But Gremlins, along with my number 1 pick, which is coming up, is responsible for why we have PG-13 movies. Before these movies, we had G, PG, and R, and Gremlins is PG, but it is way too intense for kids, so they had to sort of invent this go-between, this sort of middle ground. That's why we have PG-13. That said, another one, drenched in 80s, practical effects, horror elements, comedy elements, nostalgia literally coming out of the gizmo, and it's just absolutely fantastic. It's a great Christmas watch. You can watch it when it's not Christmas. You can watch it as a horror movie. You can watch it as a comedy. The only reason we don't still have Gremlins movies is because Gremlins 2 is the worst. One of my personal favorites on the list, Poltergeist. I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies. Now, it's not the scariest. It is, I think it is pretty scary. I think it's scarier than a lot of people give it credit for. But it's so well done. It's so well put together. It feels real. It takes its time. It's not in a hurry to scare you. It makes you a part of this like supernatural experience. And I love every frame of this movie. Just when you think it's over, it keeps going. This is one, I don't understand why they remade it. Like, they remade it, it flopped, because it sucked. You cannot make this same movie. You cannot remake it better than the original. It's like Back to the Future or something, which would obviously, don't even ask me in the comments, Back to the Future would obviously be number 1 on this list if it were on Netflix. It is not. And let's take the silly glasses off and the jacket, because my number 2 pick is easily the most serious one on this list. That is Platoon. Now, me having never been in combat, I cannot say for sure, but from what I'm told by people that have been, Platoon is, or at least it was for a really long time, one of the most realistic depictions of war, more specifically of Vietnam. So if you're maybe a younger viewer and you've never experienced Platoon, not only is it a really great movie with a really great cast, it's really well directed, really well produced, very realistic, it's a window into something that only Vietnam vets could have witnessed. Now, is it as intense? Probably not, no. But it's just, maybe as close as like the average person could get. And so for that, I did want to treat this little bit of a review with a little bit more reverence than I have the entire time. But that aside, it is a very, very good movie for all of the reasons that I mentioned. An absolute must watch for movie lovers if you've never seen it. And so with that glowing review, what could possibly be number 1? Number 1 isn't just one movie, it's 3 movies. It's the Indiana Jones trilogy. If I have to pick one for this 80s movie review, it's gotta be Raiders of the Lost Ark. It started everything. It's the one that feels the most like an 80s movie. I'm actually partial to the aesthetic and the darkness in Temple of Doom, but I do recognize it's the weaker of the three, and we're just gonna pretend like the fourth one doesn't exist, because it definitely should not. But I'm a big fan of The Last Crusade as well. I think that is a fantastic movie. It speaks to the original in a really amazing way, and having Sean Connery as the dad, having, you know, James Bond as Indiana Jones's dad is such a smart move. It plays out well. There's some great action sequences in that, but Raiders is just so perfect. It's the perfect movie. Every time I watch that, it's just sweeping and dramatic and cinematic and beautiful and fun to watch. It's one of my favorite movies, but let me know in the comments below which ones you plan on rewatching, because I assume out of all my lists I do, this is the one that most of you have seen all of, but I still wanted to spend some time talking about them. I love these movies. I hope you do too, but I will keep making videos like this as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching this one, and you will see me on the next one. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so a number of ways. You can become a Patreon supporter like one of these fine people. You can check out a link to that in the description, as well as a Teespring store full of shirt designs that I designed myself. Just a great way to contribute and to make sure that I continue to make these shows weekly. Also, just feel free to like, share, and comment on some things that you would like to see me cover on Flick Connection, but I appreciate the support however you wish to give it. But be sure to thank those Patreon supporters in the comments below. They definitely deserve it. They're really helping to propel this channel in ways that I can't quite talk about just yet.